Hey everyone, this is Ashley MacDonald from the Vermont Counseling and Training Center. And over there is Gus. Today's video is about how to cope if you and or family members and loved ones are positive for COVID. And this is coming from direct experience. At the beginning of January, I got pretty sick for a few weeks actually, and I was pretty worried that I had COVID. So I went and got tested, and that was my first time having to be tested for COVID in this almost year that we have been living in this COVID world. And my results came back negative. I was like, okay, maybe I had the flu. That's all right. But then a couple weeks passed afterwards, and I learned that my family members, some of my family members, were directly exposed to COVID. And although everyone in my family wears masks, socially distances, and has been staying safe, the reality of it is that it can happen to anyone, no matter how safe or not you're being. So we all went back and got tested, and something I think is important to bring up and to think about is that this whole COVID experience is a learning experience for everybody. So part of that is that sometimes things around COVID, tests, results, don't always go as planned. And that's okay, but it can be really hard to accept in real time. For example, when I went and got my COVID test done for the second time, I was told, you'll have your results within 24 to 48 hours. Almost a week went by before I got my results. And on top of that, I actually was informed that I had COVID, but then later the same day received an inconclusive test result and was told that I was actually given the wrong information and that I needed to get tested again. Obviously, things like that are frustrating and anxiety provoking, especially when there's concerns that you might have COVID. And then in the midst of all of that, I learned that 3 of my family members tested positive for COVID. 2 whom have some medical ailments that make it even more concerning when we learned that they were positive. So then you have me sitting here worried about myself, worried about my husband, worried about my entire family, and not even really knowing my status. So I went back, got retested, and got my results back, and they were negative, which was obviously a relief. However, the experience that I had up until then honestly was pretty anxiety provoking and worrisome when I learned about my family members who tested positive. And I took a lot away from the experience that I wanted to share with you guys and talk a bit about, because I don't think that any of us a year ago, when COVID started being a thing, expected it to last full year like this. And knowing that we don't really know when society is going to be safe to go back to normal. So it was hard and scary. And I have a couple things that I learned during the experience that I would love to share with you in hopes that it maybe gives you a little bit of peace of mind or comfort, or is helpful for you if you end up in a similar experience. My first words of wisdom to anybody who is getting a COVID test on themselves is to be aware about how often you're checking for your test results. You might be like, why? It's very quick. I can jump online, I can type in my username, and I can see if I'm negative, positive, pending, or need to go back and get another test. But it can be really easy to become fixated on that, especially if you end up in a predicament like I did, where results don't come in as quickly as you would like. So One word of encouragement I have for you is if you get a COVID test done, maybe say in the morning I'll check it when I wake up, and when I go to bed I'll check it, but to give yourself an actual set time that you're going to be checking, because otherwise what can very easily happen is you can become fixated on it, and then you find yourself checking it every hour, every half an hour, every 15 minutes, and that can make yourself feel even more stressed and anxiety provoked all around. So my first word of encouragement is choose 1 or 2 times during the day that you are going to commit to checking until you have your result, but don't have it consume your day, because as soon as you start doing that, it's going to start consuming your mind too, and your worries and your fears. If you have, say you come back positive for COVID, even though I did not have a positive test result, I was really sick and was worried that that was what it might have been. And I actually had a lot of fears of like, oh no, the people that I have been around, like who have I been around? So if you test positive for COVID, know that you're not alone. A lot of people have had COVID. I think something that's really hard for people to grasp is when you have embraced such a safe approach to navigating in the world with COVID and then ending up with it, it can be like, what did I do to deserve this? And those are moments where it's really important to remember that this can happen to literally anyone, no matter how safe or not you're being, with just the nature of it being a virus. So not to beat yourself up and to know that you're not alone. Is it scary because there are unknowns and symptoms look different for everyone and experiences are different from everyone? Absolutely. But you're not alone. So I encourage you, if you test positive, there are a lot of support groups if you're at all involved on social media around people sharing experiences of what their life has been like since they were diagnosed with COVID, shared experiences, words of encouragement to get through hard times. So if you test positive, I really encourage you to seek support that's going to feel comfortable for you. If you're in therapy, talking about it there. If you're not in therapy, but think you should be, looking and seeking a therapist that feels right for you. And not being afraid to talk about it. Everybody experiences things differently in life, but when you can make connections with people, that's a beautiful thing. So also, if you're comfortable talking about it, connecting with others and supporting and building each other up while you go through the experience. If you have loved ones who test positive for COVID, that can be hard because we naturally worry about our loved ones, and sometimes we can start thinking about all the what ifs that could happen, and those what ifs tend to be the thoughts that really manifest into a lot of anxiety and stress. And so in regards to that, my encouragement to you is a few things. Talk openly to the person who's tested positive about how you might be able to support them. Even if it's just, do you want to FaceTime? How can I be present for you so that you feel supported and safe during this? That's probably going to feel good for you to be extending that support, but it's going to exceptionally feel good for them knowing that during this time where they might be struggling more than the norm, that you'll be there for them, even if it's just to listen. I also encourage you to remind family members, especially those who do beat themselves up and wonder, like, why me? How did I get this? To remind them that it can happen to anyone, and that doesn't make it any less scary, but that they're not alone. And that it's okay to express them like, yeah, I'm worried about you too, but we're going to get through this together. And sometimes that's all someone needs, is a little reminder that they're not alone on the journey that they're on. So the moral of the story is COVID is scary. There's a lot of unknowns. And even though we do have several things that we know about it, there's a lot of gray areas still. And it becomes even more of a reality when someone you know and love and care about, or yourself, is positive for COVID. So if you've been impacted previously, if you're being impacted by this now, maybe this is going to come up in the future for you. Just know that you are cared about and you are supported. Not just from us here at the Vermont Counseling and Training Center, but by many other people who have also had shared experiences. And I really encourage you to talk about it, because often talking about things helps us feel better. I hope that you, your family, your friends, your loved ones are all doing well and safe. And to anyone who has COVID now, has had COVID since last year, or are waiting for test results, I just want you to know that yes, it is scary, and that's okay to acknowledge that, but that you're not alone, and that you can get through anything you put your mind to. For myself and the Vermont Counseling and Training Center team, we hope you and your loved ones are well and safe, and just know that you're always important and cared about. Take care.